Ladies and gentlemen, share the video, and then join me in the studio. If you would like to make some comment pertaining to this particular topic, and maybe I will add another topic if we can actually exhaust it in some few minutes. So go ahead and share with your friend, and then you join the studio. I will actually send you the link. Thank you. Just give me some few minutes. I just want to build a little bit audience before I start the conversation on this particular topic. Thank you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Billy Luke. I'm coming live to share with you this particular topic: suspension and revocation of defective aircraft in South Sudan by the Civil Aviation Authority of South Sudan. Issue an order to ground the defective aircraft in South Sudan, which actually caused constant air crash in South Sudan. So this is the developing news on the ground in South Sudan, and we would like to bring it to your attention for your consumption and for public publicity, so that you can actually be informed and educated about what is actually going on the ground in South Sudan. So I hope good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you may be, depending on your time zone. And I just want to bring this to your attention so that we can actually hear some few comment on this. I think this is not going to be a long topic. It is just going to be very brief. But let me get my headpiece. I forgot it.
paru, the Lois let to win. Kamya Pandia will like it quite ruin, can they become what she did not? By when you long well, who quite your net, Narega Madam, cut off Chinial, Commander. When you book my deed, when you want to go with them, when you book my deed, when you want to go with them, Kabumi and I take in a year, you know, who might get in that spell. Na pandie yingado go kwaki wele pana wa uwen kamere ya na pandie yingado go kwaki wele uwen wa nagabete jelo toranora tamba jadi weche uwen jadi weche.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Billy Luke. Good morning once again. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. This program is actually going to address the recent development on the ground in South Sudan. Most of you are actually aware of the recent series of air crash going on in South Sudan. And some of you have been wondering whether the government of South Sudan might have actually taken any action pertaining to those aircraft crash that continue to go on in South Sudan. So today, in this particular program, I would like to bring to your attention the development that was issued today or yesterday by the South Sudan Civil Aviation Authority. And so I would like to read out the press release that was issued by the Civil Aviation Authority of South Sudan. And this is actually a developing news that we continue to receive on the ground. At the same time, this is a very unfortunate news to some of the aircraft company that have been suspended or revoked by the Civil Aviation of South Sudan. So this is why I would like to bring it to your public attention so that some of you can actually have a comment. If you would like to join me in the studio, you can actually go ahead and click the link up there, and then you can come and make some few comment pertaining to this development. It is quite a good news. Unfortunately, it is not a good news to some of the aircraft company who are affected by this development on the ground or by this executive order issued by the Civil Aviation of South Sudan. So this is very important for your public safety, and at the same time, this is a bad news to some of the aircraft company that are being suspended, revoked, and are actually issue an order to be expelled from South Sudan, from operating inside South Sudan until they meet some safety standards that is required by the law or to the public expectation that must actually meet the requirement of the public safety. So let me go ahead and read to you the article that was issued by the chief executive director of the aircraft Civil Aviation of South Sudan. So this is one of the articles that I received from South Sudan Chief Executive Officer, date 7 November 2021. Director General, Safety and Flight Operation, South Sudan Civil Aviation Authority, Juba. Reference is suspension, revocation of AOP, and order of some aircraft to leave Republic of South Sudan. As a part of the report, the recommendation tabled to the office of the Chief Executive Officer by the Safety Oversight Committee. The committee, after their 1 month deliberation in the finding, on AOF maintenance record. During the deliberation and finding, the Safety Oversight Committee in the second final report to the Office of the Chief Executive Officer on the 5th November 2021 came out with the following recommendation. Number 1, immediate revocation of the AOF of South Sudan of Antonov 26. Antonov 26, that is the number of aircraft that are being affected or targeted for this suspension and revocation. Antonov 26 aircraft have been grounded. Antonov 24, Antonov 30, Harkis HS 748, and Lead 410 UBP, with an exception to the UN operated Antonov. So all these aforementioned aircraft, ladies and gentlemen, have been suspended, have been revoked, not to operate in South Sudan because they do not meet the public safety. That is why these particular aircraft have been targeted. And the reason is because based on the maintenance records and the deliberation and the finding made by the Chief Aviation Authority of South Sudan, they came to conclusion that these particular aircraft that are being mentioned in this particular press release should be suspended, revoked with immediate effect. So these are the particular aircraft affected by this suspension and revocation. So this is a very unfortunate news to some of these business individual or person that are operating this particular aircraft being mentioned in this particular letter or press release. So I repeat it again. Antonov number 26, Antonov number 24, 28, and 30, Harkis, and HS 748, and Lead 410 UBP, with an exception to the United Nations operated Antonov. So all these Antonovs are outdated aircraft that have been operating in South Sudan, and most of this particular type of craft have been crashing in South Sudan. So they have been suspended, they have been revoked, not to operate in South Sudan until they meet the public safety requirement. And that means they have to undergo mechanical maintenance or inspection in order to resume their operation in South Sudan, or else they have to get out of South Sudan, according to the order issued by the Civil Aviation Authority of South Sudan. So this is very, very unfortunate because one of our sisters just bought an Antonov 26, and it was just some few weeks ago when aircraft landed in Juba International Airport, and then it was announced with good news, with excitement, a lot of celebration going on in the Juba Airport. Unfortunately now, this aircraft is actually being targeted and is one of those that are being suspended now. So this is very unfortunate to our sister. Nyan Biting aircraft have been one of those companies affected by this unfortunate announcement. So this is very, very, very unfortunate for our sister and many other individuals. I do know actually 3 individuals from Ruwing that are operating aircraft company. We have Adani James Mayol. She's the lady who just bought an Antonov 26 with $1 million US. A company is actually being affected by this, according to the number of the aircraft being affected because I know her company aircraft number. And then there are other two guys from Ruwing too, but their company are SEP. They are not being affected by this order issued by the Civil Aviation Authority of South Sudan. So it is very unfortunate for our sister because a business company is actually being affected. Very, very unfortunate. And she just bought this aircraft. But for your information, none of the aircraft has never crashed in South Sudan. So this is the first time her business is going to crumble under this revocation and suspension because the other aircraft company have been crashing. That means maybe they have not been meeting the safety standards as required by the law. Maybe most of the aircraft haven't been undergoing mechanical inspection in order to ensure the public safety. Okay, number two, another recommendation is that the identified aircraft to leave South Sudan to the state of registry within 1 week as from the date of submission of this second report. So the aforementioned aircraft, ladies and gentlemen, have been ordered to leave South Sudan with immediate effect and report to the nation or to the country where they are actually registered, or which actually confused me in my understanding, because I know most of these aircraft are actually operated by South Sudanese business themselves. So the entrepreneurs that are operating these aircraft are mostly South Sudanese. And they get this aircraft with a very cheap price, maybe from the international market, or they go and buy them in Russia, in Ukraine. You know, they go and buy these antennas from the former Soviet Union countries. And this is where they get this outdated aircraft. They might be an old aircraft, but they can actually be fitted with a new part. And that is why every aircraft that operates in any country must have to undergo mechanical inspection in order to make sure that that particular aircraft is actually safe for public operation. So the question of whether an aircraft is an old aircraft or outdated one does not matter as long as it is already being fitted with brand new part. That is what should be done in South Sudan. So if I were one of those civil aviation authority, or if I were one of these individual company that operate this particular aircraft, they should actually complain to the civil aviation authority that the aircraft actually meet the mechanical inspection as standard, and that the aircraft are actually safe to operate in South Sudan. Or else they have to provide the proof of mechanical inspection that the aircraft, despite the fact that they are outdated or old aircraft, they can still be fitted with new part that can actually make them to be operable in South Sudan. So I'm not sure whether they just go and buy these aircraft without actually looking the dates or when this aircraft was actually manufactured and whether it is still operable. So we all know that these aircraft are actually outdated. They were used during the World War II, or maybe they were used during the World War I. And so if this company, where they buy them from the developed world, sell them to these entrepreneurs in South Sudan, they can still actually demand whether these aircraft are actually safe to operate or not. And if they are still regarded as outdated aircraft, they can still be fitted with new part. And if they are fitted with new part, they can still be operable. that means they can still operate in any country. So maintenance matter and mechanical inspection matter to each and every aircraft. Even a new aircraft can actually crash as well if they are not actually being maintained on weekly or daily basis. So that is why it should be required by the rule of law that each and every aircraft that operates in any given country must have to undergo mechanical inspection. So this is exactly what should have been done. So given my own personal analysis about this press release issue by the Civil Aviation of South Sudan, I think this is actually not fair to these entrepreneurs in South Sudan because they are economically and financially affected by the grounding of the aircraft. So in order to give them a benefit of doubt, they are supposed to be given an option to make sure the aircraft must have to undergo mechanical inspection. And then from there, the mechanical inspection directorate will actually determine whether those particular aircraft are safe or not safe to operate in the airspace of South Sudan. That is, and when they do not meet the mechanical inspection, when they do not pass the inspection successfully, that is when they have to be grounded, they have to be suspended, and they have to be revoked. And that means they don't have to be certified to operate in South Sudan. And this is what is supposed to be done by the Civil Aviation of South Sudan. Unfortunately, this is not the case. So we cannot allow our business people, in this case, to go and buy these aircraft, and then all of a sudden they are actually being, being suspended, being revoked, and being ordered or appelled to leave the country. I don't know why they are actually saying that they have to leave the country. Where are they going to? These are citizens of South Sudan, and they cannot go anywhere. So I expect South Sudan to be the country of the registry. That means it is a country where the aircraft is actually registered, but what is required, what must be required by the Civil Aviation of South Sudan is to make sure each and every aircraft company that operate in South Sudan must make sure the aircraft must undergo mechanical inspection. And it will be up to the director in charge of the mechanical inspection of aircraft to determine whether any of the aircraft is safe or not safe to operate in South Sudan. And that is when the determination of whether the aircraft has to be grounded or not will be determined from there. But it is not fair when it is just issue like that. So that is not fair. It's not fair at all. So let me give you another one. There's another point here. The third one say that 2 Antonov operated and owned by the South Sudan Air Force flying with a foreign civil registration are strongly advised to change to the military registration. Otherwise, if they continue operating with the civil registration, they will be banned from the operation by South Sudan Civil Aviation Authority. You see, this is another contradiction here. The third resolution recommended by the Civil Aviation Authority of South Sudan is stated that 2 Antonov 26 operated and owned by the South Sudan Air Force flying with the foreign civil aviation. That means there are 2 Antonov that are being operated by the South Sudan Air Force. The South Sudan Air Force. Because South Sudan military, that means SSPDF, have a Air Force. And 2 Antonovs are actually being operated through civil aviation. But it is not registered in South Sudan. It is registered with the foreign company. And they are actually operating legally in South Sudan. Can you imagine that? So that means they are actually exposing themselves negatively in a way that is not, that is too contradictory, and it doesn't make any sense as well. Why would they do that? It's not clear. So they are actually being warned that if they do not register with the South Sudan Civil Aviation Authority, then they will be banned. That means they will be terminated, they will be suspended, they will be revoked, and they will actually be expelled from South Sudan. So this is very unfortunate how the system is actually messed up in South Sudan, and no wonder why anybody can come with an aircraft to South Sudan and operate without being licensed, without being certified. But it was our expectation as South Sudanese that each and every aircraft that comes to South Sudan must have to undergo mechanical inspection, especially when they are a company that are registered to operate in South Sudan. With the exception of the foreign aircraft. So only the foreign aircraft that may not be required to undergo mechanical inspection in South Sudan, because they do undergo mechanical inspection from the country where they come from. Because this is actually what is required and expected of each and every aircraft that operate anywhere in the world. So maybe it is only in South Sudan that any aircraft is actually allowed to operate in the air without being inspected. So it is actually recommended. It is actually mandatory for each and every aircraft to undergo either daily or weekly inspection to ensure that they are safe. So I think that is very clear. And from today onwards, we should expect the civil aviation of South Sudan to ensure that any aircraft that come to operate in South Sudan must have to undergo mechanical inspection. And this mechanical inspection must be mandatory. It must be required by the rule of law to make sure all these aircraft must have to be inspected either daily or weekly. And when they are inspected on a weekly basis, they have to be certified. And certification of each and every aircraft is very important. And before they take into the air, they have to make sure the civil aviation at the Juba airport must make sure there is a certification for that aircraft before it take into the air. The reason why that should be done is to ensure the public safety, to save the life of the citizen of South Sudan or any foreign national that come to South Sudan. So this is very important. If it is a cargo plane, because I know most of the planes that operate in South Sudan are cargo planes. So those cargo planes should also be inspected as well, because it is important for your commercial commodities, commercial goods deserve to be insured. They should also meet insurance requirement as well, because it appears that some of the aircraft or some of the vehicles operate without being insured, and that is not important. For the aircraft and the vehicle that operate in South Sudan to be operated without being insured. So insurance is very important, so that when there is a crash, the victim of that aircraft or that airplane must have to be compensated for the loss. If it is a cargo plane, all these commercial commodities or goods that are actually damaged during the crash will also have to be insured. So that's why each and every aircraft must also have to be insured, and it have to be required by the law. That is what is expected of each and every every aircraft company that operates in South Sudan. It is incumbent upon the government, particularly the Civil Aviation Authority of South Sudan, to ensure that all these companies have to be inspected, they have to be certified, they have to be licensed. So nobody can just walk into South Sudan and come and operate anyhow without undergoing inspection, certification of the aircraft and the company. So everything have to be licensed. It is a mandatory responsibility and obligation of the government to make sure inspection must have to be done on a regular basis. So one wonder what is actually going on here. Is it the failure of the Civil Aviation Authority? Or is it the ignorant and negligent by the Civil Aviation? Which one is which? Who is to blame here? Is it the company? Or is it the authority in charge of the airport that have been very negligent and ignorant of paying attention to the public safety, as well as securing the commercial commodities? Because ever since these aircraft continue to crash every now and then on annual or monthly basis, this is actually causing some business people to lose immensely to their business. So this is actually going to affect most of our entrepreneurs economically and financially. Okay, now that these aircraft are actually being suspended without giving them the benefit of doubt, that means to allow them to have their aircraft being inspected. Some of them could be operable. That means some of them could be functional in a way that they meet the safety standard. Even if they are actually outdated aircraft, there is a chance they are actually fitted. They are fit with a new or brand new spare part that might have been installed in those aircraft. So they might be working properly, but some of them might have been malfunctioning. They might have been defective for some reason that it was the Civil Aviation Authority that haven't been paying attention or inspecting the aircraft ever since they start operating in South Sudan. So they don't do regular inspection. And once you do a regular inspection mechanically, it will enable the government to certify and to license. So certification and licensing of each and every aircraft is very important. And this has to be done either on weekly or monthly basis. The same thing should actually apply to the vehicle because vehicular accident has become very, 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 very common, very regularly. It has become frequently in South Sudan, and is another issue that needs public attention. It needs the responsibility of the Ministry of Transportation to make sure each and every vehicle must have to undergo mechanical inspection as well. Something needs to be studied in South Sudan. What is actually causing the vehicular accident in South Sudan? Is it over speeding? Is it the intoxication of the driver? Is it overloading of the vehicle? Or is it, recklessness driving that is caused by, I don't know, maybe the road condition could be a factor. So these are the things that need to be identified depending on the law enforcement investigation pertaining to all those pattern of accidents that have taken place. So most of us don't have access to law enforcement record about how they regularly conduct investigation of all these accidents. So depending on the record, what is on the record And after you do the finding of those records, that's when you come to the conclusion, and then you make a recommendation, just like what the Civil Aviation of South Sudan have done. So we have seen nowadays that motorcycle, which they call border border locally in South Sudan, and vehicular accident has become very common, and it has become one of the major death cause in South Sudan. So this also required the Ministry of Transport to pay attention to what exactly is causing this accident. So those factors will actually be determined based on the record given by the police investigation. So we don't know what is on the record, because South Sudan law enforcement is not actually making a public record available to the general public, so for public consumption and for analysis of the data, statistical data of what is actually contributing to regular accident every now and then. So these are the very critical issues nowadays in South Sudan. Aircraft crash, vehicular accident have become frequent in South Sudan. So all of this required the government of South Sudan, particularly the Ministry of Transport, to launch a public investigation into this particular department. The civil aviation must do the jobs. They must actually take upon themselves the responsibility to make sure there is a regular mechanical inspection of each and every aircraft. Even if they are a new plane, they are a new aircraft, they ought to be inspected. They ought to be inspected. I remember some years back then, around 2018, when this new Boeing came out with all the computerized system, some of them were able to crash, despite the fact that they were just manufactured recently with the new technology. They were able to still crash, like the one that crashed in Ethiopia and other part of the world. But they were actually fitted with new, brand new technology. Unfortunately, they were still able to crash. This is why it is very important to make sure all the aircraft must have to be inspected. And that is what I know so far, based on my personal experience here in the United States. Most of you do actually go to airport, and you might have seen how they frequently or regularly do inspection to each and every aircraft before they take into the air. Particularly when an aircraft is actually scheduled to take off, they have to make sure they test everything. You know, despite the fact that they are brand new, they are in good service, you never know, something mechanical might break down at any given time. Maybe in the course of the flight, something might happen to some part of the engine or some part of the aircraft. And if it is not regularly checked, it might actually cause malfunction. That means some part become defective, and this is actually what is contributing to an aircraft crash. So this is what South Sudanese need to understand. It is not a matter of whether an aircraft is outdated or an old aircraft. It can be an old craft, but it can be fit with a new part. And that's what I thought should be used as a defense for those entrepreneurs who are actually being affected by this executive order issued to ground, to suspend, and to revoke the aircraft. This is very unfortunate. You cannot just buy an aircraft yesterday and then you come and get a suspension for your aircraft. So what you need to do as entrepreneurs who just bought, aircraft recently, you need to fight. You need to file a legal lawsuit and talk to the South Sudan civil aviation. Find your lawyers, find an attorney, and make your case. Because this is a matter of economic and financial loss. And you cannot just let it go like that. So I would encourage you, as entrepreneurs who are actually affected by this executive order, to actually launch a lawsuit. So you can actually reclaim your right back, because you cannot just be suspended and expelled to operate in South Sudan. And what you need to do is to make sure you need to prove to the Civil Aviation Authority of South Sudan that your aircraft is set to operate in the airspace of South Sudan. And how do you prove that? To prove it to them, you have to make sure your aircraft have to undergo mechanical inspection. And once they undergoes mechanical inspection, that's when you have to be given certification. You have to be given license to operate. But for those who will actually fail the mechanical inspection of the aircraft, those are the people that are actually expected to be suspended, to be revoked, and to be expelled to operate in South Sudan. That's how I perceive it. It is a simple argument, you know. So I thought that what need to be done. Otherwise, these business people who just got their aircraft and now they got suspended in South Sudan not to operate, it's not acceptable. This is not fair. So if I were one of those entrepreneurs, what I would do definitely is to make sure I have to fight for my right. Fight for your right, because this is actually going to cost you economically and financially. That means it's going to give you a big loss if you cannot operate. You know, like I feel so bad about my sister who just bought a aircraft recently, and now she became a victim, despite the fact that none of her aircraft has never crashed in South Sudan. So she was actually trying to add another fleet to her aircraft. Unfortunately, now she falls a victim just because other type of the similar aircraft have been crashing in South Sudan. So what I would advise her and the rest of the people whose company or whose aircraft haven't been crashing in South Sudan, they have to launch a legal lawsuit. They fight. You have to fight back. You don't just give in like that. Right? So this is just my analysis, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know whether any of you have a point to contribute to the show or program. I have no idea. But this is just a little insight of what I believe should be done. We have to give our business, our entrepreneurs, the benefit of doubt, so that they do not have to get abused financially and economically. This is going to be a very big loss to their respective company. So I feel pity for their loss, and I'm here to encourage them so that they can actually launch their own legal battle against this executive order issued by the Civil Aviation of South Sudan. So this is very, very unfortunate. What I'm advising the Civil Aviation Authority or government of South Sudan as a whole is to make sure all the aircraft must have to undergo mechanical inspection. And when they undergo mechanical inspection, that is when they have to be given a brand new certification as well as license. That is how it's supposed to work. You cannot just go and suspend and revoke any aircraft anyhow without meeting the mechanical inspection. So it was a good thing, to be honest with you. It was a good thing for the government of South Sudan to ground all the aircraft and then order all of them to undergo mechanical inspection and make sure each and every aircraft is certified and licensed. But whoever is going to fail the mechanical inspection, is the one to be affected by this order. That is how it is supposed to be. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, that is not the case. That is not the case right now. So there was just, there was just an order that is being issued without allowing these companies or entrepreneurs to prove it to the civil aviation that their aircraft are set to operate or not set to operate. So we have to give them benefit of doubt. That's how I perceive it. I think, what is your contribution? You can make a judgment about it, but that's the way I look at it. And then the second issue of concern in South Sudan is this frequent vehicular accident in South Sudan. That is another big concern too. And South Sudanese need to pay attention to that. What is actually contributing to this frequent accident on the road? We have seen many numerous accidents taking place in major highways and inside the town themselves. So based on the police records, we don't know what is actually contributing to it. Is it because of the intoxication of the drivers? Is it because of the overspeeding? Is it because of the overloading of the vehicle? Or is it because of the bad road condition? Because I know in South Sudan there are so many loopholes. There are potholes in most of the road. And you see in South Sudan, you see people rushing, particularly in Africa generally. You like to see drivers, rushing. They like to drive with the speed, despite the fact that the road condition is not even favorable for those kind of vehicles. Here in Western world, we actually drive on a very smooth road. Even though the road is smooth, we are not even allowed to overspeed. There must be a speed limit. And at the same time, what I have observed in South Sudan, I have seen the drivers or this commercial vehicle being overloaded, to the extent that the weight limit of the vehicle itself is actually exceeded by the load of the load that is actually being put on that particular vehicle. And that can actually contribute to accident, because once you start driving that vehicle, what do you think will happen? The vehicle will actually overturn. Some of you can actually tell by so many pictures being posted out there. So I believe overloading of the vehicle is causing accident. Overspeeding is another factor. Maybe some of the drivers are actually not being tested. They can actually drive under the influence of alcohol. So that means there is no enforcement of the rule of law on the street or on the road. So it becomes a jungle, a jungle network that is not actually being ruled by any law. We have also witnessed how these motorcycles are actually driving anyhowly on the wrong side or over speeding, and they are actually able to, collide head on. And that is how they kill their victim easily. This is very unfortunate. Every time I visit Africa, it is very scary when I see all these drivers. They be like dodging each other like this. If I were to drive on those streets, I will actually make an accident right away, because I can't bear with it. Because it's like some people don't even care about the, giving other people a way of ride, like give them the opportunity to go first and the other one have to go first. Everybody kind of like competing for who go first. Sometimes they can even hit your car and nobody care. I have witnessed this several times in Kenya. So this is very, very unfortunate. Something need to be done. Something need to be done. And it should not only be done on the national level. Each and every state must have to impose their own rule of law. For instance, if you want to make your state to be one of the best states that impose rule of law, they have to come up with the, imposing rule of law on the street. There must be no overspeeding. There must be no overloading of the vehicle. That means they have to make sure there is every station. There must be a police station at any given point to make sure all the vehicles have to be inspected when they are actually operating on the street, to make sure no vehicle is overloaded, to make sure no vehicle overspeed, and to also test the drivers in case they might be using, might be abusing the substance like alcohol or some drug that can make you intoxicated to, operate the vehicle. So these are very important for public safety. So all of these fall under the same category. That's why I bring it up, but I didn't actually put it up here for public view. So I consider this the same topic: the aircraft crash, the vehicular accident. All of these need the attention of the government of South Sudan. Each and every state must have to do something about this. This is becoming a cause of a frequent death in South Sudan. And all of us have a family member, or it should be concerned about those South Sudanese in South Sudan who are actually affected by this daily deaths caused by the aircraft and the vehicle on the street. So the Ministry of Transport must do something. You cannot just write a law on the book and you do not impose it. This is very unfortunate in South Sudan. And some ministers, they just boast themselves that they are actually doing their job, but they're not. Where is the police superintendent? Are they actually imposing rule of law on the street? Too many accidents. And we do not see accountability of these drivers committing homicide on the street every now and then. There must be a strict law. And even if driver is actually found to be intoxicated on the street, there must be a suspension for at least some years. Your license has to be revoked. It has to be nullified. So you don't have to operate in South Sudan. Okay, let me check the comment here, guys. I think I'm done. Another very interesting topic that I was supposed to share with you as well is a concern of what is actually going on in Ethiopia. It should be a concern to all of us as Africans, particularly the Horn of Africa, because the civil war that is going on in Ethiopia has become a matter of geopolitical interest. And the way I have seen this civil war being broadcast widely across the Western countries or Western media is actually concerning me. And this raises an eyebrow of whether these Western countries are actually interested in the destabilization of the Africa's strongest country, like Ethiopia, a country that has never been colonized in the history of Africa, can never be humiliated. And I think some Western countries have a political envy or jealousy to see Ethiopia as a country that never falls, And I have seen this rival country, particularly the Egyptian, are actually involved in a lot of media propaganda against the Ethiopian government, which the Ethiopian government to fall because of the geopolitical interest in the Nile water conflict. And this is very, very unfortunate. as the South Sudanese, as an individual, it is not in my interest to see Ethiopia being destabilized. I want a stable Ethiopia. We should be proud of a stable Ethiopia because strategically, Ethiopia is very important for our African pride, and it is also strategically important for our defense in terms of Nile water. Strategically, economically, Ethiopia is actually doing the right thing by constructing a dam that is likely to generate economic growth and prosperity in Africa. Should they actually be able to complete the construction of that hydraulic dam in their country, because this electricity power is actually going to electrify much of Africa, particularly the entire Horn of Africa. And this is going to jumpstart economic growth and prosperity. So we have to support Ethiopia's stability. The stability of Ethiopia is very important. But we have seen some foreign interests interfering in the affairs of Ethiopia. I wouldn't be commenting anything pertaining to the Ethiopian conflict, given the fact that Ethiopia internal problem can actually, if it is an internal problem or a conflict that is actually being owned by the Ethiopia without foreign interference, I think it will be a right thing for us to abstain from commenting on it. But the fact that we have seen Western countries, including one of these rival countries, Egypt, in interfering in the affairs of Ethiopia, should be a concern to all of us. And that should actually raise an eyebrow of African countries that have a strategic economic interest in Ethiopia. But for the rest of the Western countries, they have this geopolitical interest in Ethiopia. They want to see Ethiopia destabilized. And it should not be in the interest of any patriotic Pan-Africanists to see Ethiopia being destabilized. Now we have seen these, this puppet in Africa that are being used by the Western countries rushing to Ethiopia, blaming Ethiopia for all this conflict, and they are being used by the Western countries as a puppet to go and interfere. While these Western countries are busy actually, weaponizing this humanitarian assistance to the areas affected by the conflict. This is exactly the same thing they are doing in South Sudan. So I like the way Ethiopian government is actually dealing with this NGO on the ground, because NGO or humanitarian organization are actually weaponizing the conflict. That means they actually, use ambiguity of, humanitarian supply to actually bring in weapons and supply them to the rebel. So this should be a concern. Yeah. This should be a concern. I know all of us, we have our own problem, but sometimes you should be, sympathetic to one of your neighbors for some geopolitical interest too, or regional interest. So we cannot allow this Kawajat to play us like a ball. That's the same thing. They just wish any country they see prospering economically or financially, they would want to bring you down, because they don't want your country to prosper economically and financially, given the fact that you are going to affect some future, global economic competition. So that's why you see these Western countries, we know their mindset, given the fact that we went to school here and we understand the world politics beyond, beyond the way some African leaders actually perceive it. So that's why African graduates in Western countries should be given the opportunity, because they understand the Western country better than those African presidents that are leading the respective countries. It is very unfortunate when I see this Museveni and this Nigerian guy being used as a peace envoy to go and interfere in this, used by the Western countries as a puppet. Very unfortunate. So anyway, yes, if it is a conflict of Ethiopia, it should be African people to intervene and to resolve their respective conflict without the interference of foreign Western countries in it. It will make sense. So yeah, I think I should call it the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. So let's pray for Ethiopia. I wish Ethiopia to be victorious militarily against the rebel groups, because I don't like the way they are actually being cheered on by the Western countries. Wishing Ethiopia the downfall is not a good option. No, it's not. No. And I know Ethiopia will stand their ground. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think I forgot one of the concern that I want to bring to your attention as well, pertaining to the price tag. There was a confusion a week ago pertaining to the price tag of the cargo plane. Cargo aircraft price tag versus the passenger aircraft. So there was this confusion over the price tag. When this lady by name Adao brought aviation to South Sudan, there was a confusion about the price that was posted on Facebook, and that actually caused some public protests on the Facebook. And I have seen people commenting, and we exchange discussion on that. So I just want to bring it to your attention with the clarification that there is a difference between the cargo plane price tag versus the passenger price tag. Cargo plane or cargo aircraft, ladies and gentlemen, this is an aircraft that is used to transport or to logistic commercial commodities. For instance, if you have something to ship to some part of South Sudan or to ship to Africa, from United States to Africa. For instance, you bought a car, you can either you ship it by the sea or you ship it by air, But I know mostly there is no cargo plane that can actually fly all the way from United States to Africa. Mostly they use ship because they have a sea transport. They use a sea route instead of using plane because it's too heavy to carry those stuff. So what they mostly use is they use ship. They use sea as the only route to take those heavy thing or heavy commodities to Africa. But in Africa, once you are inside Africa, maybe you want to transport something to other part of South Sudan. It could be maybe business commodities. It could be a vehicle. Like if you bought a vehicle, right? you put it in the airplane, and you want to transport them to other part of South Sudan. Those are considered commodities. So you only use the cargo plane to take those heavy stuff to other part of the country. So when they say cargo plane, it is actually meant for transporting good. So good can be of different variation, or it could be different type of good. So depending on whatever you want to ship somewhere in South Sudan. So the value of charging that price can actually, according to the Western countries, according to what I know so far, when you are actually shipping commodities, it will be determined by the pound or by the kilogram of that particular, or by the ton of that particular good that you are transporting. So they will actually weigh your good or your commodities. So the weight will actually determine how much for a kilogram or how much for a pound that they have to charge. You know, that the price is actually determined by, by the business or by the market price. So that particular price can actually be determined by the amount, by the quantity of that particular commodity that you are actually. So they will actually weigh. If it is much heavier, if your commodity is heavier, the heavier your commodity, the more it will cost you money, isn't it? So this is what I'm trying to give you an idea how the price of a cargo can actually be determined. But that's not the case in South Sudan. Maybe they just assume, or they just, I don't know, maybe they just calculate a distance. So according to the paper that is circulating on Facebook, so they may say, okay, from Juba to Wow, any commodity that go there can actually cost you this amount, So depending on the distance, maybe. Yeah, because it means they don't determine the price by the quantity or by the weight of that particular commodity that is being transported or being shipped somewhere. So for instance, if I have a phone like this and I want to transport it, maybe you want to ship it, I have to put it in a package, right? And then the package, when I take it to the post office, they will actually weigh it. And then after the weight, they will take it for shipment. So that shipment is actually going to, the weight of this particular phone is actually going to determine how much they are going to charge me for that shipment. That is how cargo plane operate. So cargo plane you see here in Western country, they go to different part of the world. So they take around the shipment. They can be different type of packages. So your package will determine the weight of your package will actually determine the price they're going to charge you. If your weight is lighter, then your price will be small. If your weight is heavier, then your price will be bigger. So depending on the weight of your products, that is what determines the price. But that's not the case in South Sudan, maybe. So maybe according to what I saw on that paper, maybe they actually determine the price by the distance. They calculate the distance. The farther your destination is, the more they might charge you. Maybe that's how they determine the price tag of that particular cargo. Because people were actually complaining about Nyan Biting Aviation Incorporation. People were complaining on Facebook why Nyan Biting Incorporation Aviation is actually charging too much money. And some people assume as if it was a passenger plane. It wasn't a passenger plane. This is a cargo plane price tag. That's why it is actually more expensive. Even, the distance between Juba and Nairobi is quite expensive. The way they charge people, because there was one time when I sent money to Nairobi, transporting my mom from Nairobi, and it cost her like one-way trip. One-way trip cost her $400, right? And it is only a trip of 2 hours, and it is one way. But if this is where in America, to go for a distance of 2 hours, it can only cost, if it is one way, it can cost you $100 or maybe $200 here in America, right? But if that were America, it would be two-way. It would be two-way flight, go and come back, right? That is a round trip. So that means, price is actually being determined by, by the market price of that particular country or that particular area or region. So no one can actually question it, because these businesses are actually, they rarely get customers. So what they do, this is very expensive, because there is no competition of a business there too. So they don't do this on a regular basis. There's no regular competition among these aircraft, or they don't regularly carry out some business. So they do it occasionally. That is why they have to charge expensively. The same way, when you actually ship a crate of soda from Juba, maybe to some part of Wow, it is going to be very expensive in the market, because this commodity is rare. It's not even manufactured in that country. It comes from a different country. So the higher they charge you, the higher you will also be charged by the business when they go and sell those commodities. Right now in America, there is inflation going on. All the commodities are actually, the price is rising due to economic inflation. So the government is actually starting it. What is actually causing the rising price of the food in the market? And that is why the polling survey of the president is actually dropping. It's going down, because citizens are not happy. And now we are approaching a holiday, and people are actually worried about this is going to cost them a lot of money. Like I went to shop the other day, and it cost me only $117 just to shop, for grocery shop. It is very expensive now. I don't know why. And even the gas price is actually up as well. So they're talking about inflation. So that means the market price can actually be determined by some factors in the market. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you don't have to question the business as to why they charge you expensively. Yes, you may strike, you may protest against that price, but they have a reason why they did so. That's why you see the government sometimes can actually give the business people subsidies, because there is economic impact on the people or on the consumers themselves. So this is very important to understand the factors that contribute to. Those of you who have studied economy can understand this. But I'm talking from personal experience. I have experienced a lot of this stuff in person. And I do follow a lot of these business people, what they do, why the price go up and down. There is always a factor to that.
You room da nganyenda nangwana ngongara chenga chola gulina to gana do ngwan da ya la wachale ya nolla Hello, what you know down by link, the town moja dem yang to bind the carriage of more penya, the London go to Bango, the Lanterial, the Luda, ya la wachale The London go to Bango, the Lanterial, the Luda, ya la wachale ya mam.
This is one of the best song I love because it makes me emotional when I listen to it. Very sad song.
Junuda, Mujaunian Gudo, Mujanga, Tong Benupanati, the Gomunke, Mujanian Tolda, Mujanga, gonna tell when the Panati, Janunda.
Kwa we quite one growing die in particular. We quite one the new business aircraft. New can be very important. Chaga ting tire the chiga loan. Ulon jita rada loan yake. Call baga concern. The way business people, especially way way son and daughters of ruling. When the new business aircraft. You know yourself who you are. I don't want to call names. But when you don't get yinga. So can it be very important? Can back tire kun bakega inspect. Bakega check. Ngochiri ya tire go ko biya tin. Go tire do go chibulon. Na le lun wadang man mostly we ko ku wen ya ka jot bakale bai. Ku tek den tire do ku nang jiri ya go kalubi ko wi. Ku na lun go ko. Ke yin ko ye kan no. So can it important? Na chaga yin ku taw ke chiba demonstrate the power ruwen. Ke kana to ko bata into consideration. Mis ruwen un ke de nim tajir. The tire ko ba ke jam a chan we ko ruwen we regular customers ke business den kana ke wara kai ko nga ko ya ke nyira kai ke lui ke de business tire to ko big low ke la dum ba tire ran bi ata ke tire un te che gui da pyat kuna le la nyal ki bi lo ngo ko ke tek de ngal bi ya majority le bi ya we ko ruwen. So for the safety of kai kun ujala ko ke jinu Sudan ko wala Iran len ben jinu Sudan ku che tire do ke bi are ke feel comfortable ku bi ya feel safe there no yin ago tire do ago a trust ku business do bi ngor ke chat e kene ke important to dun won mi ruwen unta de nim tire nke yani kene yani bay new ago we gwak e kene we ko ton we ku ka ya nya ba we cho na le rut de ran la dai channel dan kin ka pet du we ba bi de ran to bo we bi ben channel kene bi ben jame kene see kene ke important important for your own business, you know, in order for your business be ngor ku lui ku chin gun ben tem ko ku chi proper do chi ko betem ku betaw ki de regular customers ka pan ruin ku jala junub Sudan bia ke kapya dunu betaira do bi taw ke ni dip bi ataw ke do ku bi ataw ke ye ting ta to ban na de ke tin yir ya go taira do go chi beloy because na le lon wadang ku bela lon ku lon ga ko ke ten ko bi ga riyo ji cha taira do ke ten go business do area na ye commodities na ye kan ke jot ku de tajir ko ke pan ruin wone kan jot from Juba wala ke la jot anywhere wa ye ke la pan ruin ko taira do ko lon ga ka ken ke ten na chile bi yin be trust ya be business be ben ngor ko lo ga yin yin ran de na taira do to ken en pia do bai be taira do bi taw ke yin zip be taw ke ya do ko bi ya check ta to ko ban ago chi ko bi wi to ken ka yo ke ma sai le we wo mi ru we un te de nim taira ka yo nyan kai da daw ene chi taira ke ne chi ke lu affect by o da un te chi got ken ko ke civil aviation ta jinu Sudan Lakin yin ke chiba demonstrator in particular ki ban ruling ako banam de adi bai duan yin ke mit ka bai go ka tarat ken bi ke ga check because mostly you should be concerned about the public safety de ko ruwen woni ge ga ke cha to tarat ken ga la kuna de property ko ne ruwen ke lo transport man jen go ta ten ki chiba demonstrator tek danga de ka ruwen woni asset public asset ne ke jot e tarat ke woni ke lo list so ago ki asset ka man chi bir ya chi bo lo ni tarai ka pet ba tarat ken bi gato by the rule of law ke chi ke inspect kula them big public safety big law meet public standard safety so can it very important in chiba demonstrator the bin in a thing in a video ke can it important we ko unte de nim tarat I'm trying to reach out to you be there and ben media can it be benja especially man town ten yan kaya daw ya nya bi benetne ko ben yiga idea ba de ngobi lo man chi tarat ke chi ke ga pack by this order unte chi civil aviation authority ke kan so e kanal bi a lost de ku ke pai la o ju wan tiok yen tarat ke chi le ke go dom ku lui ke block ko le ka chi ke lui junu Sudan ku ke che lo ju wan tiok ku ka chin tarat de ni kon lo kwa ni chin tarat do ni kon lo you have to fight for your right nu la de tarat bi ngor ko lui ku bi ngor ko lui di e ba lo proof through inspection that no tarat do apet na chi tarat du ku la tem kula yogo nu chin ko njiri ha ga go yin la bi ngor ki lui lakin na de ki la yogo jori ha go kalas ke civil aviation mta jinu Sudan ade ke ni ma ga nu belo le yena tarat do ngana chi lui inke kete woni ya tinge ne suppose mera loyalty but that's not the case achila ku lil bada all the aircraft ka ke ga be ke low ground just because some other aircraft companies ko ke achi tarat ke ne ka loin that not mean no tarat ko shirke ka ke kede de maybe your tarat ko le big town in a good mechanical shape akala bi ngor ka lui tek dan ki ke fit with the new part so le bi ngor ka lui so the way be civil aviation ben improve no tarat do shi lui ke be kon tema wal we get your certification we get your license lakin if your tarat ko chiga fail the inspection get an inchi bi certification inchi bi yen ajere inchi bi license then mean get that's where the disqualification be in your law le tarat ke lo ga chiga be lui fa ni Sudan te woni ya tingen ga so yin na daw la video ko le no wi kan ya be ben la video wi yani kana ko be jami ka woni ke jami ke ben te den yok ko ne lu bin yega idea ngobla loy in se bi taira do ben jalo la yene ga lu block ko ka chin taira do ni kon lo ni jinu Sudan kene a yoga chi make sense we ke mi ko fa ni jinu Sudan ko chi le we go chwa we ye e la dem ba lo de men we ko ke affected by this order ulo le yene taira ko a lu ke test if they fail the inspection kalas it will make sense no way we can disqualify lakin disqualification is le bla ko le ko to bet we just want to a chain way how government work so I knew other no I have seen there is a competition going on at the tire ko be jab way what the tire ko le yen ka be pat ke jalu pa ni jinu Sudan so can actually be lui ya we by so can ke with the marway ku ka yogian and coach which ke le yes it's a queen one and brother you know and God it doesn't matter even some new born born ke aircraft one fight by bit one thioka pa na America atin kitara to la one Ethiopia nge kitara wana lo Ethiopia ru 2018 I remember that ku one of these tire kamana ilo in somewhere okay ka bobby ke brand new okay luyen cause and ke because of the software kitauti and it's malfunction it's been a cause in the system despite the fact that no can new a brand new tire la bobby So it can in lewe by inspection in ke matter. Tire le biya o lekin le bi gop ka wona jidit ka ta tire gop. Ke ten ka tire le bi ngor ko lui. Apiet. Ale biya o le yen gop lekin di hien do ka yiben rabat ko mane cha de cha na ma cha ka tin. Tamarabat of 1970 something. Kwa je ye gop adit jidit. Because the dom be yen try the engine all engine dom try the way who yigi engine jidit. And they can still work. The same thing apply to aircraft. When I leg quite one good you Sudan say aircraft can low grounded. Kulu fell without being inspected. Actually, they make sense. So can I share fair? If I were one of those people, entrepreneurs get affected, I can fight. So I'm here to encourage them to actually wage a legal battle. They have to seek a lawsuit. Again, it's a civil aviation. They don't know the action they have taken is not fair. Share fair with them. And this is going to cause them economic loss, financial loss. We can share fair. Share fair. So in yan biting can I with batting and again. And yeah, you know that I will contact you anyway. I will contact you quickly. A book author day. Away with other companies, they will affect Adam. You have to fight back. You cannot just say, okay, order the law issue. So you have to leave the country as it is actually being issued in the order. But it will make sense in a way. Civil aviation in Sudan, metal mat gam will lay in a tire key. Tire can a tire can go on. Every single aircraft must have to be inspected. And if they fail the inspection, those are the aircraft that ought to be grounded, to be suspended and revoked. Simple and clear. So I yogo chakaleach I even Rabia Kaman where Arabin and Gidi break down, unfortunately, without your notice for some reason. Maybe something hitting it out, mini B and Cherkai. Same thing in Maneta one, you did one, a pilot. Around the world. I'm Jamakachelon in Sudan. Brand new Tyrad one, big, year born, you did. They new technology, new Microsoft. She ban so I say you Tyrad one did lot because the Libiariante, you man Arabate, man Arabat 1960 something or 1970. They are still running on the road now in America. We Louis, I think Louis engine you didn't yet healthy. But go the be jellybean all one could be you boy of it. That's in the way that it's a control. It can be all one like in a level pit with a new engine, with a new spare part. You know? So that is what I'm trying to tell you here. So now Louis can inspect it, a little bit of yoke, get they got new spare part, they got new engine, they got could take them be Louis appear. So don't take judge by the number of years, a year on Gentile in service, yes. But a call be there regular inspection on frequent basis. Like they can do it weekly or on daily basis. Before any aircraft take into the air, they allow them to inspect. That is the key to public safety. So don't just trust the new aircraft. The new aircraft can have a problem too, but after they undergo public inspection. So that's why again, think pan Western world, every license renew. I even like I have my license, the driver license, right? They have to renew it. You take some years and then you have to go back to the driver license. Being male and young and test, being male feminine. Take them a little bit of eye problem too. Or maybe be there some disability wouldn't be there you. So Kabela town in a license. You are being tested your vision. Maybe no restriction in your license, your license. Common sense, yeah, Jamana. So Ako bu ko ko on go bu ko coin. They cannot just be chỉ là cái chùa vậy à rồi tại ra cái này chỉ cái lùi cái chín cũng thể cho qua tin na để ran chỉ tại ra để ya class ene tại ra nó có support bị jo low ground để tại ra nó lo cái nhu chỉ be lùi na có ran tùy bị tại ra bị lùi cái lá mà là ở jin jidit bị là ở brand new far bị cái jo pit that tại ra ene là ben lùi. That is how I look at it. So we cái cái loyal cái think they make sense.
You know that what I want you to do, young at the tongue when the time to the moon came, and young young told by, but young I'm going to trail run and go find a dream to moon now. Sudan, and there are Jagan and there are Janona, Naranjo, and there are Jagan and there are Janona, Sudan. Naman boyando jawa pun kwa pun janonda bai kanangwe kabun janonda jalan bai pana wapi chiyo naman boyando jawa pun kwa pun janonda bai kanangwe kabun janonda jalan bai pana wapi chiyo Abun Sudan ya kina bana ya yan kina me abun jenem na kina bana ngali betwa Sudan na jauh bayang oleh terkenang ije mandong lambai pana kaman jende oke wana lupan la payu jalayang ngong bayang ngom Sudan na jauh bayang oleh terkenang ije mandong lambai pana nanti jende oke wana lupan nya.
Hey, good night, ladies and gentlemen. Program is over. It is time to end. Let's go enjoy the music. Hey,
In sound music. In sound music.
La jamba gudang wanga gudang ding gol ga wai de tega jinna wal jongda tega jinna bana kim go anda ka dam jindi bai go yen wang te ga dong chigi yande yen chigi yande yoke abadanga na mudingi yo ana mudingi yande
You know, you get, I'm in the room, young man, over there. You know, you get, I'm in the room, young man, over there. You are getting confused today, I've been trying to lay out. You are getting confused today, I've been trying to lay out. Ruwen pia kunyanga na muna Yang di dewan ni kan go kala go maling. Ruwen pia kunyanga na muna Yang di dewan ni kan go kala go maling. Do ape ne bolu wa ga mi nyanga. Do ape ne bolu wa ga mi nyanga wa ni ga. Rum jo nga ke kini wa ni ga. Do ape ne bolu wa ga mi nyanga. Do ape ne bolu wa ga mi nyanga wa ni ga. Rumjongela ke kinwaniga Kutamani naspiala, you know bene mojedale. Kalata kutamani naspiala, you know bene mojedale. Victoria John, wala mayangu, wanega salpakire betana. Victoria John, wala mayangu, wanega salpakire betana. Namlawe nete John, wanega salpakire betana. Namlawe nete John, wanega salpakire betana. Yang mi jono katiba bongo Mariam mar bukatu kudaldal we di fada Pangale yang mi jono katiba bongo Mariam mar bukatu kudaldal we di fada Kege di bae bijeriagi white booty sin okay jengri kan makan kunizal kumoinjang white booty sin okay jengri kan makan kunizal kumoinjang Kege di bae bijeriagi Kiada dengori choy by. I love the song. I love the song. Bang one ruwe like a wet Japan by. Only got the run and only you doing. When I take him to when I be only got the run and only you doing. When I take him to when I Akenda, like what kwalanda kidi god butang akenda walloy kwalanda kidi god butang akene bul kwala ke pang akene le kud kwa elalo adong loy wan dan wel ka kene kwit ke nyela akene ga ja kud yo ke kila apyo wen ke kila I don't like one down like I can with kicking yella. I can get up with your kicking log, your kicking log. I can't well more people back at Taniki. I would call up when you can like up. I can't well more people back at Taniki. I would call up when you can like up. I be a Kumalakalo Kupangag, Western sauce called to fun, which is there my yard. I be a Kumalakalo Kupangag, Western sauce called to fun, which is there my yard. Kinam jamat, abiam namu kuru kuat, bar yang wana ganga juat, ruang uril piat. Ruang kinam jamat, abiam namu kuru kuat, bar yang wana ganga juat, ruang uril piat. Editor yang ngejok, editor yang ngejok, dia lejuk tamiloi dia duda kelok jai. Editor yang ngejok, editor yang ngejok, dia lejuk tamiloi aduda kelok jai. Okija kumbanyi, yang panda oke luitaba. Ruwen apukeng lang lang, okija kumbanyi, yang panda oke luitaba. Ruwen apukeng lang lang. Galata gutamani naspiala, you know bene mojidale. Galata gutamani naspiala, you know bene mojidale. Victory John, wala manyangu. Wanega sulpakire betana. Victory John, wala manyangu. Wanega sulpakire betana. Namlawe nete John. Wanega sulpakire betana. Namlawe nete John. Wanega sulpakire betana.
Thank you. In sound music.
You know, go Sudan, you go belong. You know that, but the run to the view, getting good. I know you're good, you know that, you will and you guy get you know, go Sudan, you go belong. You know that, but the run to the view, getting good. I know you're good, you know that, you know that, you think the band good. You know that you've been the burn good. Okay, And you guys get it your way up.
See. Undi di nyel nyang, bako chung la di mere go, inga lore te go na go nyet, inga dung te go di nyel nyang, undi di nyel nyang, bako chung la ya porale, yan ko ni mere ale boy, inga mana gangma, inga bende te go na go nyel mama, bende chiko tuklan yan go ban. Queen Sinyan, Queen Bukayega, Windiran, the Jordan, who was Jinan Puida, Yasmayega, Windiran, the Peva, at Wadaga, and Kia the Peva, at the Yan Warrior, around the water with a Yan Warrior, whereby Yankam the Lord and me young Amanda in the Peva, and the thing is Wabang, Yan young the Jordi, and the Mamma in the Peva. I told the poor and Mama in the Peva. Yo, undi the Nyan, Papa Chumala, the Miracle, in the Lord, the Dona yet. In the doing the Echo, the Nyan, undi the Nyan, Papa Chumala, Yaporale, Yan Tony the boy, in the Managana, in the Bang the Dona Yel, Mama, find the Chico, the Plan, Yan Roban. Academia to Mama Mandan, when you walk on, and the Yan to a bine. Yan to the Neria boy, and the Yan to a bine, God man, not him. I will like Pima, I will Yan to a young man, a bonnet, Ajola mayun garangma, ajola nu kochwan mana yang jam, ani chol man mani lani yani bitu, woju gerle, girgini mbak binyaya, ani o manya de woju gerle, akademi yam na mayrauma, ani yani tuami woju gerle, ngedi ngedi jom na kunyen, ngedi jom ni yang. Ya undi di nyang, babo chumula di America, ingalore twedo na konyet, ingadun twedo undi di nyang, babo chumula jaburale, yango ni meri adaboy, ine manaduma, ine bande twedo na konyel mama, bande chico, ruklay nyana do. Anam de melwa de nadig, de wunna kiriala da mama opunyamuwe. Yan kaya ya pinye pilwetwe, yan kaya ya pinye pilwetwe. Achika manyo, ayene mijumiki wuti ankol. Yan kona chile melwal mama ndawu wuti ankol. Agawa gawa, agada melala yumanyande. Wuti yanbati, abong ngone kima. Andi mama ne we wuti wulani mandi wasukele. Yo undi di nyel babo chumula di America, ingalore twedo na konyet, ingadun twedo undi di nyel nyang, babo chumula jaburale, yanto ni meri adaboy, ine manadema, ine bande twedo na konyel mama, bande chico, duklay nyana do bande.